Overtime work also has its own definition that I would like to read to you. It says, subject to the provisions of clause 11.2, all hours worked in excess of the ordinary hours of work prescribed in clause 3.1, other than on a Sunday or public holiday. So let's go back to that employer who decided that his staff will only work 40 hours a week. On the 41st hour, that would be overtime. So you can't calculate normal time in one way and overtime in another. If you have decided at your establishment that normal working hours will be 40, then from the first hour after the 40th hour, overtime will be due. Overtime is paid at 1.5 of the employee's hourly rate or by paid time off. Now, paid time off, there's a special clause exactly or specifically dedicated to the concept. But basically what it is for every hour of overtime worked, you can grant your employee an hour and a half paid time off. So this is obviously not a way to save money. It's a way to try and limit excessive working hours. It could be used in a situation where we have a lot of clients who say they work 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or 4 weeks on, 1 week off. And then if you plan it properly, you could classify that 1 week paid time off as the time off in lieu of overtime payment. If an employee is absent without leave, so it's not, there's no specific reason for it. It must be sort of like a disciplinary offence that he's off. Then you can deduct that absence from his overtime hours. So say, for example, he only had 36 normal hours and he worked 9 hours overtime. And he was absent from work for a silly reason. He left early and he came late or something silly like that. It wasn't because of sickness or leave or permission from the employer or because there was no work. Then you can take the 9 hours overtime and fill up the 9 hours that he was short. That does save some money. Okay, then we get to clause 12, which is time off in lieu of overtime payment. We have spoken about this briefly, but for every hour that you want to give your employee time off, every overtime hour, you grant him 90 minutes time off. You can also combine it. So you could say for every hour that he worked overtime, you'll pay him for 1 hour and give him half an hour off. So you can do a combination of that. And then if you implement a scheme like that, you need to give your employees at least 72 hours notice, and you need to also notify the bargaining council. You can't also withhold it, so it becomes due within 30 days, or at least within 52 weeks if there's a written agreement with the employee. Then we get to clause 13. Clause 13 is in respect of calculation of overtime. I think the main concept here is that in the road freight industry, we're not counting minutes. We round it up or down to the nearest full half hour. So we pay in half hours and full hours. But a relief employee, the relief employee's overtime is calculated on the wage of that category of whose duties the relief employee was performing, plus the 10% additional allowance. So he has a slightly higher overtime rate than your normal employee.